everybody. We are back. I am Jeff. That is Ray. You will notice that two are missing. William SPG and Miz Tracey, both under the weather today. SPG is lurking in the background.
Get well, guys. Get well.
But Miz Tracey has gone back to bed. Ray, how have you been? It's been a month or so since we've done this show.
Yeah, man, just spending time with the family and playing a lot of games and watching binging on a lot of Marvel shows and stuff on Netflix. That's what I've been up to. What you been up to?
The house move continues.
Congratulations.
We are in the new house, but we're still not in the house. We're still doing renovations. So once we finish that, then I can start rebuilding the man cave. So that's going to start in August. So I'm kind of still shuffling between two homes, but we've got full possession of this one. We sold, the other one is gone. I no longer am between three homes. So it is great, but that's not why we're here. We are here for season 2, episode 9 of Retro Rewind. And we have two awesome guests. First, I'm going to bring in Integrum Retro, Jason.
Hello,
and
Jason.
Retro Gaming Brews, Ryan. Welcome to the show, boys.
Hello, Ryan.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule. So, Jason, we're going to start with you for no reason other than you're there first. So, Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself, your channel, what you do, and most importantly, the question we ask everybody right off the hop, what does retro mean to you?
All right. Well, geez, where do we start? You know, it's funny. I started the channel Integrum Retro because I felt there was kind of a gap. I don't even know how long the story should go, but basically, you know, I like anybody. I love retro. I bought into retro first to see what I could get on the market, but it was actually buyer's remorse. I bought this beautiful cabinet, and there's a lot of carpentry out there, great artwork and whatnot, but the user experience to me was awful. I convinced my wife that I had to save for 6 months to buy this very expensive cabinet that did everything. And I kind of humiliated myself because once we turned it on, I was like, all right, let's play Centipede. Trackball didn't work. Let's play some other game beside an arcade game. And none of these things you would think worked. And I was just telling my wife, don't worry, it's fine. Go ahead there, you know, I'll get this working and then we'll play some games. Well, 16 months later, I decided to just wipe it from scratch, rebuilt my own system from scratch, and said, hey, you know what? There's a lot of people who may also want to use this and know how this stuff works, because I learned a lot along the way. So I started Integrum Retro with the goal being I want to educate people on how to do retro at whatever level, whether it's putting together a cabinet, putting together the software. And I think I did that. So I made a video that's kind of made a splash, and I've got something new I'll announce today as well.
Awesome.
So to answer your question, so what is retro to me? I always say, for me, it's all really about the nostalgia. So retro is either any game, object, or item that makes you really reminisce of the past because it's no longer available. And so that's going to constantly be happening. I mean, we like to call it classic rock, if that was the music that you remember as a kid. But it's always some emotional attachment to something you just can't have any longer. And so the name Integrum actually is loosely translated in Latin to complete, because I wanted to call the channel Complete Retro, because I wanted to cover all aspects of it. And I thought, wouldn't it be really kind of an Easter egg if I used a word that was also a retro language? So Latin in that case.
Awesome. You're muted.
I'm muted because I was taking a drink. Is PlayStation 3 retro or not?
To some people it is. For example, my daughter in college is going to college, and when she saw that I was able to emulate 3DS games and she could play those old Pokemons that she did in junior high and elementary, to her, she instantly got that nostalgic crush. So I would say absolutely. It's the games that just aren't on the market today. They hit at a right time in our life when our imaginations were still being triggered, as opposed to now we're just sitting there like zombies because everything is kind of done for us. It's a little different, but I'd say that's what really retro is to me.
All right, Ryan, Retro Gaming Brews. It looks like you've got some Gaming Week podcast fans in the chat.
Yes, great to see that. Thank you, Saturday. So, for myself, I started off the channel Retro Game Brews as part of a personal podcast between a buddy and I. we were both into two distinct things. So for one, we were into retro gaming, but we were also into craft beer. So it was a mixture between the two. So hence the name Retro Game Brews, kind of like a
Makes sense.
Yeah, a bit of a pun, I guess.
It makes sense now. I kind of wondered, but I knew we'd get to it someday. So
for sure. And so, we spent some time focusing on just talking about some of the games we were playing and some of the news that was going on, as well as providing some insight as we drank a few different beers and provided, our opinion on what we were drinking. And it went really well. Me and him were having a great time. But, life kind of the circumstances behind it, we ended up shutting down the channel. So I took over the Twitter portion of that and really spent some time getting involved with the retro gaming community on Twitter. And that has been a fantastic experience.
Yeah,
and
that's where you and I met.
Right. And so as a result of that, I've gotten an opportunity then to get involved with some additional podcasts. And right now I'm involved with the Gamers Week podcast, which just celebrated episode 30. It's with my co-host Blue Williams, and anybody who's familiar with the show, .eg Retro is also on the Retro Rewind. And
we had him as a guest, and shout out to him. But he won the Tetris Championships. What was it he won yesterday?
So we were at the Southern Fried Gaming Expo, and there was a Tetris tournament going on, and about 25 people or so signed up, and Donnie cleaned up, to say the least, and actually ended up winning it. So he got himself a lovely medal to take home, as well as a T-shirt. So it was really cool.
Donnie is an alum of our show, and I saw the tweets yesterday. So like, good for him. So
Super proud of him.
Yeah, excellent. And so, what does retro mean to you?
So retro, to me, it's a subjective term, right? A lot of times we associate retro with the games that we played kind of growing up through the gaming experience. Now, not everybody started off gaming as a kid, but I think most of us had that experience, at least from my age group. Was that, you got into Atari, Nintendo, those types of games were where you associated kind of your childhood and that nostalgic value behind the word retro. That being that subjective piece of information, it's difficult to kind of pinpoint what is retro to everybody. So that's what makes it difficult. And I think it's an excellent question to ask anybody who does come on this podcast, because again, is a person who has the name Retro Game Brews, I need to be at least cognizant of the fact that retro means something different to everyone. My focus for the most part is pretty much anything that's, say, like the N64 era back, but that doesn't limit the amount of gaming I enjoy. I'm not just somebody who just goes, I only want to do retro games. I play everything from, Pong consoles to modern, because I recognize the value behind games. So if for example, Jeff, if you think PS3 is retro, it absolutely is retro to you.
We had a fellow on the show beginning of the season who's 21. So retro to him was PlayStation 4.
Exactly.
There you go. Exactly.
Because he's 21 or he's 22 now, I guess, Ray. So my
first system was Pong, and I remember Pong being like, oh my God, like everything. So yeah.
I was a big text-based guy in the 70s because that's all we had. So I did a lot of the text-based stuff. So back in the day. So Ryan, my next question is about this bad boy, because I did pick this up and I did tweet this out, and the comments that I got back were hilarious. But you had some opinions on this, which I love, because I went, you know what, he's coming on the show. So some people say this is the game that killed video games. This is the game that killed Atari. There were some people that I think you were one of them that said, if you knew how to play it, it was okay.
Yeah. And so honestly,
Ray's shaking his head.
I remember my friend, guess what? I got ET for Christmas. We ran over to his house, and we both stood like, what are we playing? What is this? It was weird. And we didn't know how to play it, and it was strange. So I have to admit, but we were young boys back then, back in the 80s.
And honestly,
kind of had to read the manual.
Well, that's it. Is that if you read the manual and really focused on the different icons, it tells you a lot about how to play the game. And in fact, I'm going to say this: it's not a good game. It's by no means it's not Pitfall. It's not Yar's Revenge. It's not Keystone Capers by any stretch of the imagination. But one of the things is that it is in fact playable, and it's a game that can be beaten fairly quickly if you know what you're doing.
I'm glad to have it in my collection. Let's just put it that way.
sure.
Even if I never play it, at
It
least
is
it's
a huge part of video game retro history.
For sure.
That we can say.
And I've got the opportunity to interview Howard Scott Warshaw for our podcast for Gamers Week.
Oh, wow.
Getting a chance to speak with him, it's interesting his take on it. So he likes the idea that everyone considers it to be the worst game of all time because he also programmed Yar's Revenge, which is often cited as one of the best games of all time. So he likes the range that he gets as a result of some of those comments that come across.
right.
But he also has a book that he came out with, which was Once Upon Atari, and he really discusses in that book as well, kind of the context of what was happening in the video game space as well as Atari at the time.
Yeah.
And it was shifting more from a development studio where creators were rewarded for their efforts into more of a kind of a corporate-based video game company. And there are, we often like to try to put a scapegoat on one particular thing in order to explain something that's much vaster, like the video game crash in 1983. So E.T. is an easy scapegoat for that because it did so poorly. But in the overall scheme of things, there were so many other factors that were going into the fact that the video game industry was going down the tubes. So there were a myriad of other games out there that were designed poorly, that were shovelware, that were being pushed out. There was no quality control as a result of that. They were making some really risky decisions as far as gaming is concerned, including E.T. as being one of those risky decisions. Hey, let's put together a game in 5.5 weeks. That'll be fine, right? We can do this.
Wasn't it shorter?
Yeah,
I thought it was 3 weeks.
So it's 5.5 weeks total. So what he ended up doing is he had to create like the shell of the game and then present that to Steven Spielberg first, and then he started having to program the rest of the game. So the whole development time was about 5.5 weeks.
Sorry, Jason, what were you going to say? Do you have any comment? Do you have any comment on? Have you played it? Ever played it? Or
I've not. I do have it on the retro system. I'm going to have to give that a shot. I suppose I just enjoy the history of the frustration, just falling into the hole every time. I mean, that's pretty much what it's known for. And of course, the big dig, much like the disappointment with Area 51, they were able to find the old ET boxes.
That's right.
Yeah, cool. Jason, do you want to explain what's behind you?
Well, I think what I love about the nostalgia is kind of how it makes you feel. And so you kind of surround yourself. And I kept looking, deciding, hey, what everybody else has a collection. If I'm going to be doing YouTube videos, what do I want in my background? And some people will have bobbleheads or different. They'll actually have the systems. And I found I could not afford all of the really great collections that people had. But I did have something unique, and in which I lived in Australia a couple years ago, right before COVID hit. And I knew I was moving back to the States. And something they had in Australia were these amazing comic books. Now, these are called Partworks from Hachette Partworks out of the United Kingdom, but obviously Australia and them have trade agreements or whatnot. And these are hardcover graphic novels of various reprints for different Marvel characters, whether it be Spider-Man, Superman, Nova, you name it, Avengers. And so each one of those follows a really kind of cool story, but it's a beautiful representation.
Only Marvel?
Only Marvel, but also DC down here. The DC ones I haven't cracked open because they're all sealed, as though that's going to have some value. I don't know, maybe. I mean, we all had those comics from the 80s that someday we're going to sell these for a lot of money. That Wolverine / cover number 50, which they made millions of, and it's still not worth much today. But to me, I thought the visual representation, because all the spine covers makes a beautiful mural if the light hits it just right and I line it up. But it goes all the way around the entire office here. Including, this is a Deadpool collection up here. So I just need to get back to the UK or Australia to finish that. And then, of course, now I'm getting into big box PC collections.
Woo!
So, yes, got the
Raise a big box
Conquer.
guy. Raise a big box guy.
Oh, love this stuff.
One of my favorites.
The original Star. Yes, I have
that.
that. It's in a box. I'm trying to find a place for it. You see, that's the thing. It's got to be on display. So you walk in, and even if you think the game is not fun anymore, that feeling you get every time you sit down, it's just like hearing that old song. There's something about the great memories that come with it. So I even have the original, the basic D&D series set, and the TSR D&D games back here for PC. So, and if you've seen my YouTube video, you know my retro game collection is already complete. But this is something. I envy those who have those entire, PlayStation or Nintendo actual cartridges. I really was thinking of getting into that, but then I looked at my wallet and I was like, ugh.
I had to stop. My wife told me I had to stop, so I stopped. So
and there was as you were mentioning something earlier about you lost your comic book collection, and that's what I'm worried about is the physical investment in our memories and all that getting wiped out. I don't think I can handle that.
Can you show us one? Is there one that you can? What's inside?
I was just getting ready to ask that.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Because it's a thick and it's just beautiful, well illustrated in the books.
I mean, what I love is, see, all the kids of our genre are inventing newer ways to remember the past. So here's a great one. This is Deadpool. This is part of the Marvel Hero collection. So you can look these up on Wikipedia. There were 2 series. There's the Marvel Ultimate Graphic Novels, which is one with the darker covers. But this one, the Marvel's Mightiest Heroes collection. So in this case, this will be Deadpool. You'll see his kind of logo there, and these are going to be reprints of these 6 individual comics, and they're all going to be in a high quality, high gloss recreation from the original. So many people collect and they slab their comics, putting them in a plastic cover for display, and they overpaid for it, and it's an art value. But I really want to enjoy the nostalgia, and I can sit down, with my grandchildren and say, "Here's Deadpool," because it's a very family-oriented book, right?
Yeah, that's got to be, and our friend Crow Resin says he still has his Mike Tyson Punch-Out original box and his favorite NES game of all time.
You got a question from Miss SPG.
And we got a question from SPG, if our producer can bring it up. There we go. Question for the guests. Ryan, we'll start with you. What is the most difficult retro game you have beat? Did you beat it in your younger years or later in life?
Well, Crow is going to like this one because Mike Tyson's Punch-Out is the answer to that question. That is a difficult game, and I'm pleased to say that I can beat Mike Tyson on a fairly regular basis. And I did not beat him as a child. It was a later in life thing. Mostly because as a kid, I was really trying to play it with my Power Glove, and that did not work out so well.
Wow.
Man, can you still do that as an adult, or are you doing that on the actual gaming system or emulation?
The actual gaming system. So I've got a CRT television that I put up there, and I've got my NES and my wonderful copy of Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. But the one thing that's difficult about that, if you do it through emulation, because Mike Tyson is so quick, it's often difficult because there's a tiny bit of lag when it comes to emulation. So the easier way to play is on natural hardware.
And that's where I'm trying to get to, is to be able to optimize the latency for input lag, because it really eliminates a lot of those twitchy games and makes us feel old. Like, wait a minute, I'm not really this bad. I hope not. He blinked. I saw him blink, darn it. And there's proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Crow Resin says that he memorized, he was memorizing the fight so he could beat him.
Yep.
Yeah.
And there are guys out there that can beat him blindfolded, which is incredibly impressive.
Isn't there a guy that does it by sound or something?
Yeah, that as well.
Yes, yeah.
He makes a sound, or is it the music that changes?
No, the music. I think the sound of the character and the music. I think I saw a video about that, but I was just like blown away. Like, I couldn't do it blindfold, and I sure hell can't do it like listen to music.
Wow.
Okay, so challenge for Crow Resin. Crow Resin has to do it blindfold.
So SPG says the sound cues in the game.
Okay.
Wow. What an Easter egg that the clues are in there. I don't even know if that exists in games today. I mean, obviously you have boss fight music that changes, but just the subtlety of notes that you can actually time. I think that's the thing. There's so little appreciation for what went into what wasn't complex graphics, but we made a complex gameplay.
I agree.
So, Jason, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you actually do and actually make?
What do I actually make? So as it started, there's a lot of ways to purchase your retro gaming history, from Pandora's Box, downloading Pi, whether you're technically adept or not. There's always something there, or getting the originals, which is, I think that's what really triggers the treasure hunt. There is something fun about trying to find a garage sale or Goodwill and do that. And so I wanted to tap into that, not only for myself, but for the ones in which this is a barrier for. I bought a full player arcade cabinet from, obviously, people who are very great at carpentry, got custom artwork and all the favorite characters. And just like putting the stickers on your G.I. Joes or Transformers when you first get them out of the box, there's something about the decorating of our systems. And I found out there's a lot of artwork and facade, but people don't necessarily always focus on the hardcore gameplay. So what I built is I said, I want to have one single system in which I can play anything right out of the box. And that's very difficult because you have different input devices. You have three-way, or you have two-way, four-way joysticks. You have Xbox controllers, etc. So what I did, in a nutshell, is I've pretty much achieved that. Not only have I made an arcade system, I put it all on a hard drive, and it's completely mobile. You can plug in this drive into any PC and choose your device input. If you've got Xbox controllers, you can play with that. If you have joysticks, physical joysticks, you're using coders to work with that, it's going to auto-detect that. If you now, and here's my big announcement, if you have light guns, there are 3 major light guns on the market today: Sinden, Gun for IR, and Aim Track. There's also Arcade Europe, much smaller smattering, but very similar to the Aim Track in design. And now that's been the hardest to get working. And I love light gun games. I mean, it can bring any generation together. Put a gun in a kid's hand and watch them go. They'll shoot the ducks or the zombies, as we're talking about, like, say, Walking Dead. Yeah. Now, that's really, really hard for the average consumer to get working across a broad spectrum. And that's what I've now finished. And I'll be making a YouTube video. Excellent. You plug in your gun. Once it's calibrated according to what you need, it lines up. It doesn't matter if you're playing Techno Parrot, MAME, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Naomi, Sega Model 2. Oh, if it's got a light gun, I auto-detect it and I make it all work. Wow. Plug them. You want to plug in a different vendor, you want to plug them out of order, it's just going to be it'll assign the players in that order.
Metal Jesus did a video where he had a light gun and he plugged it into like a new TV, didn't he? A flat screen TV, Ray. Correct me where I'm wrong. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, he was trying that out. Someone had given him, I guess, one of the companies that make it. He was setting that up.
Sinden.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, the Sinden light gun, the way it makes it work with an LCD screen. This is the problem if you're not fortunate enough to have an old CRT and use a Zapper light gun, say from the NES or Gun Cons for PlayStation. The Sindens basically will print a white border around your screen. So you can either generate that through bezel artwork, for example, or you can actually just use the Sinden, which recognizes the border and it kind of represents the mouse cursor. And you can use the trigger as a gun and other auxiliary buttons for mouse cursors to do that. And it's actually one of the more popular ones, but it's extremely finicky, especially when you get into 2 players, because now you have to have start software before and after the game, and if you leave it running, then your mouse cursor's going all over the place because your light guns are being picked up as mice, and so it's kind of silly there. And then also with the drive thing, I went further in trying to recreate that CRT look. So I've found custom shaders with reflective bezels, so it looks like you're looking at an old screen, and it does the most important thing. To recreate that nostalgic feel, it's hard to do this on a 50-inch screen TV. You need to reduce the size to something reasonable. Upscaling is available for games like PlayStation and above, because when you get into the 3D world, you can upscale. But those 2D pixels for Atari and whatnot look horrible on big screens. But I figured out ways to make that look beautiful again. And so it's more of a preservation project. I'm finding it's more fun because people, they don't have the time to spend. I mean, we can afford to spend money, but we can't afford to actually enjoy what we paid for.
Or have the skill or knowledge or programming or whatever. So some people might have a lot of time, but if they don't have the skill, now they have to learn how to.
Exactly.
Right. And you didn't do this overnight.
No, it took about 16 months to build, and including, making a digital comic book collection, a video jukebox, retro magazines, making them so they look beautiful and they're easy. It's one, and it's all on one hard drive. It's an external drive. You can plug it into your laptop, plug it into any device, and then pick your input of choosing. That's really as simple it is. The fun part is the cabinet builders, they've got it all made, right? They know the woodworking and putting in artwork and whatnot. But it's the computer stuff. That's where my goal was. And so I want to, in my YouTube channel, I dedicate this to teaching people how to do this if they want to do it on their own. It's a fun journey. to make these things happen. And even my kid, she loves Nintendo 3DS, and I made bezel artwork so that way she can she sees the 3DS in the two different modes. She can use the trackball as a mouse cursor or like the old touchpad. She can play her games and do things she couldn't do, like pause the game. Well, you can in 3DS, but you can't pause, if you're in the middle of Contra or something like that on the arcade version. You can't pause and walk away. What if you want to record your gameplay? You can do that with the software and snapshotting and save state. So I couldn't beat Mike Tyson, but I can do a save state and roll back to a few moments ago.
Yeah.
It's all in there with the software, and so I just wanted to package it up and make it really easy for everybody to experience, because we're all like family in this nostalgia experience, but it's extremely frustrating because there's a lot of garbage out there that doesn't. Here's the philosophy. I think a lot of people are capitalizing on retro gaming by just shoving something out there, and they're making money out of it. But I'm taking the reverse. I want to make the best retro gaming experience, and if I happen to make money to pay for what I've already invested, that would be great. So I think we've kind of hit that. But the light guns is going to be fun. I love light gun games, but they're very far out of the reach of most people because of all the amount of work that goes into it.
I put the link in the chat, folks, if you guys ever want to click on that and check out that amazing video, because I did check it out with my wife and we were blown away of all the different shades, the comic books and everything. So guys, you want to just click on the link, check it out, please do. It's an amazing video.
And big shout out to YouTube for serving his channel up to me as a recommended video. And that's how I found Jason. It was just YouTube said, hey, you might like this. I'm like, all right, cool.
There you go.
If YouTube thinks I might like it, who am I to argue with them?
It's funny how the algorithms work. Because I work in a tech company. You'll find me, trust me, you're going to find out who I work for pretty easily by just knowing my name. Unfortunately, my parents couldn't spell. So.
I really couldn't, because I was Googling you trying to find your Twitter. And
well, you couldn't find my Twitter. You can find other information that's posted out there. But I think what's interesting is all the work that everybody does independently, and the people who developed an emulator for arcade systems, the ones for PlayStation, the ones for 3DS, there's just so much amazing involvement. And it really is kind of fun to build. And one of my upcoming videos, my daughter's actually out here exploring colleges, and we are going to build our arcade cabinet together. Now, I bought the shell, but we're going to put together all the buttons and all the joysticks and trackballs. And I want to make a video showing people how easy it is to buy a kit and do it from that perspective. I mean, not everybody has thousands of dollars of woodworking material and skills to do so, but wouldn't it be fun to spend a weekend together assembling your cabinet, customizing all the different buttons you want, and then slapping a drive and there's your...
Everyone knows who knows me. I'm awesome with the tools. So, I would be able to build something from the scratch, Ray.
I don't have your skills. That's the thing. I can plug wire A
talking
into B,
about?
and
You're the worst handyman ever. What are you talking about?
Obviously, Jason's not on Twitter, so he wouldn't have read my Twitter bio to know that I was on Canada's Worst Handyman a few years ago. So.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a need for that, and I think I want people to share in that experience where you can buy a shell, the IKEA experience, but putting it together, that's what's really fun. Yeah, it is possible, and so at the end of the day, you put in your computer, and then you have a drive to plug in, and then you can experience the retro gaming. But it's so fun customizing where your retro experience begins. So, but kind of going back to that.
What do you think, Ryan?
Well, I think it's great too, because there are a lot of retro games out there that if you were looking to get into physically collecting for those games, they're extremely expensive, potentially thousands of dollars. So having access to that is a big part of this draw, especially when it comes to emulation. I mean, there's some games out there that are really fantastic. One of my favorite games of all time, Chrono Trigger, is something that is hundreds of dollars if you're looking to invest into it. And I think that's a game that everyone needs to experience. So I think it's fantastic.
Or if you want the original Neo Geos, right?
Exactly, right.
Let me tell you, that ain't happening, folks.
Right.
That's not happening. So I love emulators of Neo Geo. I play a lot.
On cue, pros like Neo Geo, so pricey.
God, I had a chance a long time ago, back in the 90s. I had it in my hand and I just walked away, and I regret doing that. but she wouldn't come down on the price. But the emulators, I have no problem. I love playing me some Neo Geo emulators. But Retro Game Brew, I wanted to ask you, man, can you talk about the awesome tournaments that you have on your Twitch channel and some of the tournaments that you do? Because I was watching those and they're pretty awesome.
So, a while back, I was kind of interested because I went to an arcade with a few friends, and two of them were really particularly good at Mortal Kombat, the original Mortal Kombat in the arcade. And watching the two of them go at it, and they switched between characters, they challenged each other. It was an exciting experience, and I thought to myself, wow, this is something that, I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm enjoying it. That's got to be something that other people enjoy. So it started off with kind of just a high score challenge. I was interested to see, are there people out there that are going to be interested in getting involved with something like that? So I posted on Twitter. I said, hey, everybody, we've got Donkey Kong for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Post your high score and let us know how you did. And it was, the reception of that was amazing. There were, like 30 or 40 people that posted a high score on something that was fairly random. So I was like, all right, you know what? I think we got some magic here. Let's go with this. And ended up doing a 10-game tournament as a result of that. And then even doing a playoff after the fact. And, years down the road, I was like, this needs to be on Twitch. This needs to be something where we can host something like in a single evening rather than doing it, across the week. And so, spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to do that specifically. Discord, thankfully, was a huge tool in order to get that accomplished. So we were able to have people log into a call, share their screens, and as a result of that, kind of display them up on Twitch. And then myself and a good friend of mine, Crunchy Kong, great name, by the way. And he is awesome, an amazing Donkey Kong player too, by the way. We commentated because Crunchy is probably one of the funniest people I've ever met. So I was the play-by-play and he was the color guy, right? And it worked out really, really well. We had a really great reception on that and ended up doing quite a few tournaments in regards to that. And last year we ended up doing a charity tournament for Mario Kart 8 for Stand Up to Cancer.
Cancer. Yep. Awesome.
And we pulled in, I think at max we had, probably close to 400 viewers watching at any given time. Raised $1,516, right? For Stand Up to Cancer, which was fantastic. Awesome. And we're going to be doing it again this year. So August, and it was 26th.
Fun. I actually peeped the stream that you did and watched that video. So awesome work.
And you know what? The best part about this is that when people come together for these, naturally there's obviously some competition and people get competitive about that. But I think one of the things that we've done that differentiates ourselves from more, I'll say, serious tournaments is that we set the precedent that anybody from any range of skill is welcome to participate. And you know what? It's about having fun. It's not about being competitive and winning. It's about being a part of the experience. And I have yet to have somebody who told me that they really didn't enjoy being a part of the tournament. So things have been working out well with that for sure.
Gotcha. So we got a lot of people in the chat that want to talk about. So me, Jeff, even William, we are kind of like really heavy in the Stadia, and they just came out with Centipede Recharge. Ooh. And so that's been, everybody's been like trying to outbeat each other's score, and it just brings back memories of back in the days going inside the arcades and beating scores and getting your name on there and coming back, oh no, someone beat my score, and then putting more quarters. And so yeah, what do you think about some of these remakes of some of these old retro games?
Again, I think it's a fantastic way for folks to get some experience with games that they may not have had a chance to back in the day. I mean, even though, games like Centipede and, like Pac-Man and all those things, those are pretty famous games. Most people are fairly familiar with them, but not everybody has really taken the opportunity to learn them. So having access to being able to play those on a digital platform and really getting exposed to why these games are considered to be so good, I think, that to me is a great way to continue this whole gaming space and get folks into retro gaming, where that's the gateway, if you will, to get to the next step. We're like, hey, you know what? Maybe these old guys weren't so wrong about some of these games, and maybe this is something that we can, I can get into myself. And it's amazing. If you look at, so for example, the Tetris World Championships that's hosted every year at PRGE, that has been dominated lately by kids in their teens. And it's an amazing thing to watch that these teenagers are getting involved in this game from the NES that was, released in the late 80s, more or less, long before they were born. And they are mastering it, and it's a fantastic thing to watch.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say. One of the games that gets very little attention, it's one of my all-time favorites, is Qbert.
Yes.
That's one of my
Qbert.
Yeah, I have. There was we're gonna get to in the last half hour of the show, we're gonna talk about this week in retro gaming. There was a Qbert for the VIC-20 that popped up.
Oh, yes.
And I was like, I'm not gonna throw it in. I decided not at the last minute not to put it in the list. But I remember, I had Qbert for my VIC-20, and then I got different versions of it. Not a very popular among certain people, but not like your Pac-Mans, your Centipedes, your Asteroids. Right?
I played There was a laundromat that had Qbert right next to Miss Pac-Man, and everybody was always on the Miss Pac-Man. So I would just let me hop over on Qbert, and that's
Qbert and Frogger. I still to this day I'll be like, hey, quick, let's Frogger across the street when we're trying to coordinate traffic. Come on. I'm with my mother, my 9-year-old mother. Come on, let's Frogger across the street. Let's go.
And it's interesting you brought up Qbert. Got an opportunity to meet Warren Davis, who is the guy who designed Qbert at Southern Fried Gaming Expo, and we talked to him, and probably shouldn't share this, but he had agreed to go on the podcast, so that may be a future guest of ours. Not 100%, but we're looking forward to potentially having him on the show.
Awesome.
I think it'd be more popular if the fact it wasn't using diagonals, because for anybody that's in emulation, it's a horrible experience, unfortunately, because nobody configures it for that darn diagonal. I mean, it was one of the only arcade games that had that kind of physical layout.
For sure.
Yeah,
I guess maybe that's why I liked it so much. That and Frogger were two of the old ones I really liked, which weren't as super popular as the Centipede, the Asteroids, the obviously all the Pac-Man. There was like 18 different versions of Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Baby Pac-Man. Just I
mean, even the hardest today, I think, is still Robotron.
Yes, very difficult game.
Robotron, wow!
I tell you, just trying to. I mean, the premise is being so simple, but it was the audio, the sound effects. I mean, just the feedback was insane. Well, I would love to see that in a Twitch stream. Seeing people do that at a high skill level, that would be an adrenaline rush right there. If you can if there are people that are still good at it, but.
They're out there.
There you go, Ryan. There's your challenge from Jason.
I'm
pretty sure they're out there.
Robotron.
I have to up my skill on Robotron.
Yeah. So tell us about the Southern Fried. No, what was it?
You had it right. Oh yeah,
you were there.
Southern Fried. I want to say Southern Fried Chicken, but that's not right. Southern Fried Gaming Expo. I saw your tweets.
Yep.
So, and I clicked on the hashtag, and I saw a bunch of other stuff that was happening throughout the. That's why I was worried before you came on if you made it home for the show or not. You're like, I'll be there. I'm good to go. I'm like, he's at this thing. I'm like, I was a little worried, but.
Yeah, made it within 30 minutes, so we were good to go. But Southern Fried Gaming Expo is a yearly con that happens in Atlanta, Georgia, where I'm located. And the concept behind it is it's all of gaming, right? So it's video games, it's tabletop games, it's pinball, and there are a myriad of different ways to kind of interact with that whole gaming space, which I really, really enjoy going to it because of that. And I'm really focused on video gaming for the most part, but there are, I can get in with some D&D a little bit. And I grew up with 2 pinball machines in my basement as a kid that my dad bought. So I'm like a kid in a candy store going to something like that. And this weekend it was kicked off. They had a lot of really great panels, including getting a chance to meet Tim Kipsero, as well as Bob Carter, who did a panel on voice acting and getting into gaming voice acting, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. Me and Donnie did some retro trivia as one of the panels, and we ended up winning 2 of the rounds, which was super exciting. Felt great to represent for Gamers Week. Didn't have to walk away with our tails between our legs.
You weren't hosting. You were participating.
Correct. Yep. So we got a chance to participate in that.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yep. So there's an entire vendor hall as well as a gaming hall. So it's all of the old cabinets that you see in several different incantations of it. So they've got the cabinets, they've got the full board cabinets, as well as modern stuff and things that you would find in even Japanese arcades.
I was scrolling through the hashtags. See, Jason, one of the advantages of Twitter is there's all these hashtags, and we were talking about how I've curated my Twitter, so it's only things I want to see. All the crap that I don't want to see, I don't see. So I was going through some of the hashtags. I saw some of the vendors, and I saw some of that. Someone in the chat wanted to know, see if I can find the question. What is
what is one retro game sound?
That's it. Thank you, Ray. I lost
your head from time to time.
Yeah.
And that was from Miss SPG Sierra Rose.
One of my favorite, if I can answer this one my favorite games that we used to play in the arcade, and we would compete with all the other arcades that we could drive to within a 20-mile radius, was Cyberball. And it's not one that a lot of people remember for some reason. It was a 4-player, but it was a 4-player game, but they had monitors so that you couldn't see the other people's screens. And basically you could play 2-player football with robots of the future. And it would take 5 quarters for the 4 plays that you could do, and you could play a good 10-15 minute game with that. But then there's a scene there. The difference is when you don't make a first down, which is getting past the 50-yard line, the ball actually gets more and more hot. At one point, it gets to a critical level. That's your last play. If you get tackled with that, your robot blows up because the ball is a grenade at that point. And then a little UFO comes by, goes, and it just sucks up your dead robot body. So. And you should really check it out if people haven't played it. It's a simple and easy football game. Now they've gotten really complex.
I gotta check that out because I remember Mutant League football and Mutant League hockey. But I gotta check that out.
What was the football game where you actually had a turbo button where you could break bones? They were like, you would run really, really fast, and you could the person would fly halfway across the screen if you hit them just right.
What was
that? NFL Blitz? Is that? Or?
Sounds like Blitz. Sounds like a
that's
Blitz.
The kind. I just appreciated the football games that were so simple. You could choose from 4 plays. Maybe they were randomized pass, but the ones on the consoles, you had to spend 20, 30 minutes just learning all the different nuances and a tackle and how to juke someone. I think they overcomplicated it.
They're coming out with some new games that are a little more simple. They're not the Madden games, simulation football or some other ones. They're just stripping it down and just making it just football, just having some fun and putting more physics in. So there are a lot of newer games that are coming out that are trying to go back to making it a lot easier for the casual gamer, not the Madden pros and the Madden guys like Ray and I and some other people who spent many years playing all the Madden games, right? So.
Hey, can't forget Tecmo. I was a huge Tecmo ball.
My man.
Come on. And that's a game that I can still play. And I have the Nintendo Mini, but I also have the original NES because I love the feel because it just brings me back when I was young, playing with my friends and playing the Raiders and Bo Jackson and running through people. So, yeah, love that game.
What I find fantastic right now is that with the Switch, they have that online option for NES games, and you can play against friends with Tecmo Bowl.
Yeah.
So, a lot of nights spent trash talking.
Yes.
There was a real difference you can see in the mentality in game design when we stopped charging for them. When it became something at home, all of a sudden now you have previews and logos that come up. But when you're taking someone's quarter, the goal is to get them to spend that next quarter as quick as possible.
Indeed.
And I think there was a very clear delineation when we jumped from taking quarters and how the gameplay worked to more of that adventure quest. Yeah. And it'd be interesting if they would bring that back to where, okay, imagine you are taking a virtual quarter. I want to get here as quick as I can. In fact, I think the best analogy to that is mobile games. Where they're so fast in getting you in and addictive because they know you could be on Twitter, right, looking at those hashtags. But they're getting you in the game so quick with mobile games. I'd really love to see that with the sit-down home consoles. Because even on my stuff with the retro, when I get into the PlayStation and GameCube, I have a fast-forward feature where I can fast-forward to 8x to fast-forward through all the video intros to just start playing the game. Nice. And that's kind of what I miss. But,
nice. Yeah. For me, the sounds, there's 2 of them. Obviously, anything that comes out of Duke Nukem's mouth. Anything that comes out.
Shake
That's
it, baby.
That's the beginning of his streams is Duke Nukem.
And I'm also a big fan of the Oddworld, Abe's Odyssey Oddworld series, the hello, follow me, those kind of things too, right? So those are the sounds
How
that I
about
hear.
Berserk? You know, when the audio chips were so horrible, you could barely understand the
Right.
insults being hurled at you.
I have to say Link, Zelda, the first,
Yeah.
the original, the dun, 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 I mean, just epic.
Did you know they actually have orchestras that recreate? I saw this in Sunnyvale, California. They have orchestras that recreate the entire Zelda. Have you seen that? It's like a Trans-Siberian Orchestra, but it's an orchestra for recreating all of the Zelda music through history, and they show all the gameplay while the orchestra's playing. Because I don't know if you, I mean, I like to listen to orchestras, but watching them, there's not much to see. But when you see the gameplay along with an orchestra version all the way back to the original NES, that's be something fun. It's amazing how much.
I've seen some of that. I've also, when they do movies, like they'll do Star Wars or they'll do whatever, but then they've got the movie playing, so you can see what's going on and line it up with it, as opposed to just watching a guy playing a violin.
Now
Yes.
I'm out here in Northern California, so I drive by to some of these legendary places where some of these games were created at, like EA and Atari, and a lot of startups were started out here in Silicon Valley.
Isn't the Yahoo campus the same place where Atari was?
Yeah, Google's out here, and Netflix is in Los Gatos, but there's a lot of stuff out here.
Excellent.
Have any of you played the Atari VCS or kind of acknowledge any of the throwbacks that are coming out?
You know, I was looking into it. Because I do collect consoles and stuff like that, and that's something I would love to have part of my. They just need to come down on the price.
Yeah,
Indeed.
Ryan, what were you going to say?
No, I said indeed. They definitely need
Yeah,
to
they
come
gotta-
down on the price.
Yeah, they got to come down on the price,
Yeah.
and then I'll get it.
I was lucky
well, there was
enough.
the
go
reboot
ahead.
of the Atari VCS.
Recently picked up the Atari VCS 800, so that reboot that came out. GameStop had a deal going on. I think it was $89 in order to get it. The interesting part is that I find myself not really using it to play Atari games, but it's essentially it's like a retro pie, right? You have access to a bunch of different apps through it, and one of them is Twitch, and the other one is a web browser. So I put it up on like my living room TV as more of like a media player than necessarily a video game console.
Getting some use out of it.
For sure.
I'm in Canada, so everything is like 20-40% higher. So, yeah.
East or West Canada?
East Coast. Southern Ontario. So I'm Eastern time zone,
Oh.
same as you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, might
Yeah.
have to drive some across the border if you ever need anything. I'm up in Maine actually, so
Okay.
not too far.
Not too far.
No, that's not too far at all.
I'm in Ray's favorite town now. I just moved.
Hamilton.
I'm in Ray's favorite town. So Ray's gonna road trip to here one day.
Not from California, I'm not.
It'd be beautiful
But,
this time of year though.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, I was just gonna say, oh my God. So what is, I don't think we ask them that, but what was their favorite console growing up when they were young? Or did you have, what was your first console?
So my first console was an Atari 2600. My grandmother had one. I was born in 1985, so long after the VCS came out. But I, remember distinctly going over there and playing Keystone Capers and just being blown away because it was something I hadn't really seen before. So I ended up begging my parents for a Nintendo Entertainment System in 1990, and that's what Christmas was 1990. And but I will say that my favorite console growing up was the Super Nintendo. It was such a huge jump from the Nintendo, and I'm a huge fan of role-playing games, so JRPGs, and that seems to be the kind of almost quintessential console. Some could argue PS2 is an example of that as well, but to me, that turn-based RPG experience has always been something that I've sought after and I've always really enjoyed. So some of my favorite games come from that console for sure.
And can we just agree that it's the NES and SNES, not the SNES and the SNES? When people say that, I just
No,
want
you can't. You can't. Sorry.
I know,
It
but
needs
people
to
do
sound
it.
like an acronym. That's always been my opinion. It's not its own word. It needs to sound like an acronym, which is why
Exactly.
you spell it out.
Exactly. Yes.
Like
Thank you.
KFC. We all know. We all know what it is. That's fried chicken. It's like KFC.
He was just at the Southern Fried Chicken Convention.
That's right.
Wow.
Guess you
The
can't call it
SFC.
that, but
Yeah.
Tetris, yeah. Shout out to
Yeah,
Donnie for
it's
winning
funny,
the, didn't know they still had Tetris tournaments. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Hello, Princess Kitty.
Now, did they do it with the arcade version of Tetris?
So they do it with the NES version. So that's considered to kind of be the quintessential version. It's the one that's easiest to play with. Atari actually was technically through Tengen is the one who made the arcade version of that. And it's with Tetris players, they're very finicky and they enjoy what they enjoy, and the NES seems to be the quintessential, not the Game Boy, which I think most of us probably was our first introduction to Tetris, but the NES one is definitely the one they go for.
Do they play with the? Is it emulated or on the real ones?
Typically, it's done on the real ones. So what they've done for the classic Tetris World Championships is they've actually developed cartridges that have a particular code that matches up with another cartridge, so that when two people are playing against each other, they get the exact same pieces as the game falls.
Oh, that's clever.
Which it is extremely clever. I think and that makes it so that it's an exciting experience because it starts off the same, and then depending on the choices that they make, what fits where is going to change throughout the entire rest of the play. So it's very, very interesting.
There's some smart people out there.
Indeed.
Yep.
There are some really smart people out there.
Yep.
Jason is one of them.
It'd be kind of like. Well, thank you. It'd be kind of like if you could watch. It's like you're watching a Choose Your Own Adventure or Bandersnatch but at the same time. I'm wondering could you make it fun for text adventures and watch people go through that, or is there a way to visualize?
I love those.
So what they. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, please. I'd love to hear. You've got the experience. I'm kind of curious about that.
Not necessarily text adventures, but games like Final Fantasy 1 and Link to the Past, as well as the original Legend of Zelda. What they're starting to do is create speed runs with randomly generated maps. So what they'll do is they'll put into a program that will randomly generate that map and send out a code for players to play through emulation. They have a special program that will put that into play, and then they disseminate that to 50, 100 people, and they all play it at once to see who can finish it first. And it's an exciting experience in that sense because again, it's kind of that not necessarily choose your own adventure, but you're seeing how well people can figure out the clues and move forward with it and guess where certain items are going to be. So it's very, very interesting.
I like that. I mean, that's a great way of gameplay because imagine everybody gets the equal playing field. You're not going against the guy who's beat Tyson with his eyes closed.
Right.
Music. But it's unique enough that you just need to be a master of the mechanics. But everyone gets. Wow, why don't we do more games like that? I guess that's what Gauntlet was, right? That was the first experience. I was disheartened when I heard that. I'm like, what do you mean? It was dynamically generated? I could never win. I'm $50 deep, and my elf is about to die. What's going on?
Oh my God, I miss Gauntlet.
There's so many heartbreaking truths that we didn't realize we were getting ripped off as kids. No, you cannot beat this game. Because when you said, what game, there was the question earlier, which games did you try to beat? I'm like, well, I thought I was beating Gauntlet, and I didn't realize it was never going to end. But Bubble Bobble, that was one of mine. I can beat that one on a quarter. Because I guess kids today, or even, we remember as kids, we had to get good enough at games to stretch our time. And we were there at the arcade to kill time. And once we're on our last dollar, we selectively had to play the games that we could beat the most. You're either the best Street Fighter player and, beating up everybody that tries to join you, or you're going for those long-running story-bound games that hopefully you could stretch out that quarter.
That's why I like pinball, too, because you can, as long as you're good, you can keep pinball going for...
Dad, can I get another quarter? Dad, can I get another quarter?
Yeah.
Dad, can I get?
Isn't that true that there were magnets to draw it down the middle? Because I would shake. I mean, it was rigged against you. But how if you're good? I mean, and you've seen documentaries there on what was it, the Saving Pinball or something like that. People were that good. How can you be so good that a magnet's not going to just pull it down and take your ball?
Yeah.
I mean, was there a trick to it? I didn't understand how people could play for hours with that kind of skill.
I was not one of them. I couldn't play that long, but I could play longer, and I, enjoyed myself, which is how I still play today.
Do any of you play virtual pinball? Or is it?
I used to love the pinball on the old PC. Remember that old PC version of pinball? Remember that one?
Space Cadet?
Yeah, Space Cadet.
Space Cadet.
Yeah, I used to play that. I loved playing that. Yes.
I have the Star Wars. I think the last kind of like digital virtual was the Star Wars that I played pinball.
So I've gotten an experience of playing virtual pinball in Rochester, New York is where I grew up. And there is the Strong Museum of Play, and they have an amazing setup there. But one of them is the Pinball Hall of Fame. So they've got a myriad of different, cabinets that you can play in, and if several of them are kind of the digital version. One of them is the largest that you can play, which is, I think, if I remember right, called Hercules, where you're shooting around basically a cue ball.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think, Jason, you have ruined Crow's life at this point.
I never realized it was unwinnable.
Yeah, you ain't collecting that money, bro.
Yes, it hurts, doesn't it? It was unwinnable.
I think you just stabbed him in the heart and twisted it and walked away. Crow's a really good friend of Ray and ours, so.
Well, also the documentary on how Mortal Kombat was designed to beat you. That it was impossible. The better you did, the better the AI did until it started cheating against you, actually making moves that were ideal to counter moves before you physically be allowed to react. So yeah, wow. It's so different. I mean, because once we hit the Atari age and they weren't trying to steal your money any longer, the whole logic behind games was just so significantly changed. And that's
even at home though, like I remember getting Batman. I was a huge fan of the Batman movie when it came out in 1989, and the game you cannot beat the game. I could not beat that game. Yeah. It was so hard, and they made some really hard there was some really hard platforms back then.
I will say I do love that game for the music. That is a fantastic. I mean, if you want to talk about retro music, that's one of the highlights, I think, of the Nintendo Entertainment System. So good choice, right?
Yes.
There was some good music in a lot of games. A lot of games had some. I don't know if they spend as much time on the music these days like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's not a fair comment. I don't know.
Well, I think one of the things that you run into is that the music in older games was kind of part of it was a character, essentially, because you needed to be able to tell a story or provide context to what you were doing. And it's difficult to do that with limited amount of graphics. Nowadays, it's basically almost photorealism, what you see on modern PC and console games, where back in the day, you needed that music to really set the scene for you. So I think that's why there was such a huge focus on what the music was going to be.
Yeah, with like Unreal Engine 5 now, things look so real. I don't know if you've seen that Unreal to demo of like Superman and Spider-Man flying around in Unreal 5 that they've done. That's just blows you away what they can do now.
I remember early on with PC games, because I went to PC games because when I'd run out of quarters, I'd just have to come home and play on the computer. But I remember the intro scenes were always so beautiful. You're like, wow, I can't wait till the game looks like this someday. And now they're so good. You're like, wait a minute, did the game start? I can control that on the screen there. I thought that was just another intro scene, but yeah, now we're actually in it. But it'd be an interesting question. What do you guys think though of games now, as a result of not needing much imagination as the character, as you the player, you don't need to imagine as much any longer? Has that hurt games? I've just, over the years, that's really been my struggle. Because a text adventure could be more fun than this beautiful rendered game on rails.
I've always said that's why I like text adventure games, because it uses the world's most powerful graphics engine, your mind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to say I'm spoiled, but I remember playing Atari and the big ugly boxes and stuff like that, to now, oh my God, look at the graphics and everything. So I'm torn, because I love my retro games, and I remember had to use some of my imagination. But good Lord, man! I mean, I tell my son, Man, gaming has come a long way. You are so lucky. My daughter, she's playing on Nintendo Switch, and my son, he's an Xbox and PlayStation. But I'm like, back in the day, man, sometimes I didn't have those graphics, and there was I played Zork, where I had to make decisions.
Good
And I
old
remember,
Zork.
and I loved Zork.
Mm-hmm.
Guys are lucky, but I have to say the graphics look good. They're really, really good. They're almost like watching an actual movie, and you're playing through it. So
And Ray, I think you can bring up a good point, and kind of to piggyback off what Jason was saying. I think that the transition from older games that did require you to be a little bit more involved in the story and have an imagination, it's kind of analogous to the transition from books to movies, where the versus you had to imagine the world in front of you versus being told what the world is. But I mean, there's merit in both. I think they're still making books, which is great. They're still making neo retro titles, which I'm super happy about. And at the end of the day, it's a different experience. You're right. And the beauty of that is that because of things like what you're doing, Jason, is that people can go back and experience that imagination piece to it, which you're doing a service, to say the least.
It's funny because I do a retro stream every Friday night, and people join and they're like, "Oh, I remember this game. Oh, look at those graphics!" And especially when I play the old PlayStation 1 or Sega Genesis games, they just look so much different. But it always brings back memories to anybody who's joined any of my streams. To see some of the old stuff. And we always say on the show, you can't look at new stuff or the old stuff with people's eyes, right? You can't look at it and compare it today. You have to look at it like it was 1995.
Well, I have in San Jose, California, we got a big retro gaming, comic book, everything. Like, I always go to these that's where I got some of my consoles and some of my games were going up to these old booths and going through and getting these games. But I also like to educate my son too, and show him all the different 8-bit, 16-bit, and all the different older games, and have him try it out. I mean, he was loving Gunstar, man. But what was it? The Heroes. Oh my God, why am I having a?
Yep, Gunstar Heroes. You're
Gunstar Heroes.
Yep.
Yeah, and so he was enjoying that because the graphics, and that's one thing Neo Geo did, was they made the games very colorful, the sprites, and just amazing, and you felt like even at home you pretty much had the arcade cartridge you were putting into a console. I had one friend who I knew had it, and we used to go and just play those games, those SNK games that were just amazing and well illustrated.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because I remember the pain of gaming, having to give it up, started when we started going 3D.
Yeah,
because I started with Atari Arcade, Pong, Atari 2600, Nintendo NES. Once we went to 16-bit, or actually I think 32-bit was the first 3D. Once we went to 32-bit, and I said, oh, it took away all the beautiful artistry. Like, if you compare that to Metal Slug, I could play that all day long. I mean, it was beautiful, and then the sound effects that go with it, you can get up and go. But then some of that 3D rendered stuff, I couldn't. You just see these big triangles, and that's why it's fun now to even collect and find all of the high definition art packs where people are remastering the original, the limitations of 3D. I think that's what kind of stopped me. I said, all right, I'm done with gaming once you've gone here. But then I get back into it once we get to the 64-bit systems and we can do HD. But there was that genre that just made it too ugly in that early 3D for me. I don't know if other people had that experience, but it was such a letdown.
In my garage, I have my old TV where I'll hook up my Atari 64, the Jaguar 64, or my NES, or my Sega Saturn, and just reminisce and play. And my wife and the kids don't understand, why are you going back and playing this? And it's like, you don't understand. This is me. This is when I was young. This is when I had my first apartment, and we were playing these, 8-bit games and stuff, and it's just amazing. So, but I go back. I mean, I play all the gamings, but I still go back to the retro because it's always gonna have a place in my heart. So, yeah.
During the height of Omicron earlier this year and stuff, I was staying at my parents' house, and because they're 90 and 95, Ray knows all this. and they have an old CRT. And so when I was doing my retro streams, I hooked up the cameras, but I plugged the games into the TV. So if you go back to some retro streams from earlier this year, I had my cameras pointing at the TV, and then I was playing on the old TV. And the new man cave that I'm building downstairs of this house will have that TV built in. And I will be able to, because I can't always plug it into my, I got one of these bad boys. I can't always plug my old stuff into this to get it going. So I'm going to have the big old TV right behind me. And I'm, my family's like, you can't bring that into this house. What are you doing? I'm like, hey, it's my man cave. Go away. Leave me alone. So
I was trying to introduce my daughter to retro stuff, and I said, we got to go to an antique store. It's like going to a museum, but you can buy stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually, on display, they had one of the really old, probably from the 1950s, those big brown ones where it was actually furniture in and of itself, but there was no tube in it, and they put an LCD screen in there. They did a horrible integration, but it got me thinking, with the shaders that we can put to make it look like a CRT and the reflection, I almost want to start buying just the shell to put the right size LCD in there, so that way I never lose the color quality. And then, of course, I can change it to the genre that I want. I don't know, maybe there's an Etsy market of people who actually make TV shells, but I wouldn't mind. I mean, it's nice to have a 1-inch screen that mounts on your wall, but I'd love to have the CRT experience without requiring two people to make it happen or move it around.
It's going to take a couple of us to move this TV from my parents' house. Even if it's the same city, it's going to take, that's a very heavy television. It's going to take some work.
If we can make a cell phone case, can't we just make an old CRT case for my television set so that way I can...
I don't see why you couldn't just scour the antique, even the flea markets. I often see them randomly at little flea markets and stuff. So just take out the two.
Goodwill is where I found my gold mine, man.
Yeah. Oh, Goodwill online now. Because have you noticed all the good stuff goes to their website?
Yes.
I just bought a Wii because I needed the nunchucks for emulation, because all the light gun games, for example, they require the nunchucks. So you need kind of a D-pad to be able to control the character while shooting. Couldn't find them at 4 different Goodwills. Went online, you can auction them. I got an entire Wii with all sorts of stuff for less than $100. Mm-hmm. And that's really the way to go. I mean, I missed the treasure hunt of the store, but now you can get his clothes and DVDs you don't want.
I spent $10 on a brand new PlayStation. When I mean brand new, it looked like it came out the box. Wow. And then I know when I opened it up, there was a copy disc and it said Castlevania, and I said, wait a minute, did somebody mod this thing? Mm-hmm. So it was $10. Like, I had to. Oh my god, what did I do with it?
Did it have the integrated chip? I remember because there was one where you had to solder wires directly to the PlayStation.
Yeah.
So I had to get it.
Yeah.
It was like.
That's great condition. Did it come with the controllers too?
Yeah, it did. With $10. $10. I looked and I'm like, am I seeing this? And so I snatched that thing up and I got home. It worked perfect. And the Castlevania disc, and guys, I'm not all for modding and all that, and back in the day, but because you got in trouble.
Before you're 18, we get away with a lot.
Yeah, that was a no-no back then, folks, because there was guys trying to sell the seat copies and stuff like that, and that was a no-no. Yeah. But I did. It worked perfect.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's the fun thing about the hobby, is the collection is complete. It's not never ending. Like I remember getting to games like Magic the Gathering, and I got hooked immediately because of the engagement, the fun randomness of cracking open a pack, and you can get something that helps your game. It was addictive until the fact it's now 20 years later, and they're still making it. That's just when you saturate the market. Once the marketers figure it out, but
it's still a big game. A friend of mine does. He's a judge, and he does. Jason Freeze. We may have lost Jason. But yeah, he's a judge. He does all sorts of stuff with Magic the Gathering. I see them at all the local shops. All have a Magic night. So it's still, even though it's 20 years old, it's still even even a bunch of those games still, yeah. I think shows like, I think someone mentioned Big Bang Theory, where I stole my quote from. I think shows like that also help some of it too, because some people would look up some of these things and they would see these other guys and they'd want to, get back into it as well. So I think that kind of helped. Ryan, what do you think about that?
Well, and I agree with you about Big Bang Theory. I think, it's interesting growing up as a kid, if you were into video gaming, it was kind of a nerd thing, right?
Yep.
Where
100%.
people look down on you if you were a gamer. And it seems like being nerd is now mainstream, which is not a bad thing. I mean, if you think about this, I just went to Southern Fried Gaming Expo. There are a myriad of different people that join in on that kind of fun. Folks who are looking to cosplay, folks who are there to get the high score on everything, or just people who are casually there to experience the moment. So love that stuff.
Yeah. And we definitely did lose Jason.
Hopefully he'll get back in here.
Yeah.
And to bring up the point about Magic the Gathering, one of the things I like about that too is that it's an interactive collection. If you are looking to collect for that's why I do like retro gaming and collecting and comic book collecting, because it's something that you can experience. And that's what I think makes it an added value to what you're getting. My wife collects like little trinkets and things like that, or she for a while was collecting old vintage dishware, and you can't use it because if you use it, you're going to be in trouble with it.
Right.
Where video gaming, it's such a fantastic experience being able to say, I purchased this game, but I've also purchased the experience that comes with it.
Well, I used to play back in the olden days, Settlers of Catan.
Yes.
And the board game. And then I remember there was somebody I knew, and she had this sister who just, typical teenage, just hated everybody. And she was playing it online. And she was just off in the corner. And I was just, I went over and I looked over her shoulder. I, oh, you're playing Settlers of Catan. And I started talking to her. And all of a sudden she just opened up to me. And her sister just couldn't believe she was actually talking to somebody, because she would never, typical teenage angst, wouldn't want to talk to anybody. Right. But she goes, how do you know about Settlers of Catan? And I'm like, sweetie, I'm old. I used to play the board game, So things like that are still, I go into the stores and there's still versions of Settlers that are out, new versions of Settlers, and some of that stuff just never dies. And,
for sure.
There's still in Hamilton where I live now, I found 2 or 3 gaming places where you can, just, set up your board games and play and have a drink and do this and that. So.
And what adds to that is things like if you go to Books A Million or even Barnes & Noble or even, smaller bookstores, you can find all the ephemera for all those things. Even you could purchase Settlers of Catan, the board game, right from Books A Million, if that's something that you're into. And that extends out that reach that, we've and continues the hobby, is because people are more exposed to it as you go along. So
and then people like us, we played it back in the day, and then we start educating our children, and then they start getting to it, right?
Exactly.
And that's what's going on with movies, right? There's a lot of stuff that these movies people watched probably when they were kids or their parents made them watch. Now they're back remaking them or doing something similar, right?
For sure.
So, right, we just didn't have that as kids. There was nothing our parents were into that we then wanted to continue.
What's the coolest
find
that you actually came across?
For me, so I had a cousin of mine that worked in an office. Eternal Darkness. Ray, you know what? Why don't you go first? You gotta tell me.
No. Go ahead.
So I had a cousin who worked in an office and went to go visit him to say hello, and he pointed out to me that in their office space they had basically kind of like a homemade arcade cabinet, where they put together all the wood and everything, and basically what it was a CRT with an NES under it, and you would plug games into it, and that's what they had in their break room, which was fantastic. So I played it and I was enjoying it. And he's like, well, we kind of want to get rid of this. Do you want it? And I was like, yes, I want this for my house. So I ended up calling up my brother who had a truck, threw it in the back, and then he comes out with this Rubbermaid tub of all the NES games that were available. And I look into it, and it's got all of the receipts for when the games were purchased, and there were probably 70 to 80 NES games in there. And as a result of that, I ended up
Wow.
getting Mega Man 2 through 6, which 5 is really, really expensive. So I was super happy to get that for free. And there were just a bunch of those. And I had quite a few of those games I already had copies of. So what I ended up doing is taking it down to my local retro store and trading it in for kind of one of the white whales, if you will, of my collection, which is Bubble Bobble Part 2 for the NES, which came with the manual as well. So that was a great day. You know, think about all the days that you've ever experienced. That one was fantastic for me, for sure.
So just for those that aren't paying attention or listening at home, Jason lost power. So hard to do a show when you lose power.
And it happens, folks. You know, you're under the mercy of Mother Nature. There's nothing you can do.
Spoken from the guy from California.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So was there any good finds at the Southern Fried? No.
So
anything fancy, anything that you jumped out at you as you're like, oh, interesting, or was it just what you were expecting?
You know, the vendor hall for this one was smaller for retro stuff. There were probably, 5 or 6 booths on Friday. Then they opened it up for quite a few more on Saturday. So the one thing that I did find, and Ray, if you're a collector of boxed PC games, is I found a copy of Super Tetris from Spectrum Holobyte for the IBM PC and Tandy 1000.
Nice.
And I was like, I need to get this. And
Nice
what was really cool about it is that, when you opened it up, it's got the 3.5 floppy as well as 2 5 1/4 floppies inside there. It had the manual. It had a promotional card for all the games that Spectrum Holobyte was releasing at the time, and the registration card. And it was just like, wow, this is such a trip back to when this was released in 1991.
Awesome.
And loved it. Ended up picking up a copy of Rockman 7 for the Super Famicom as well. So
nice.
That's a good one. And
how are you finding prices down there? We've discussed this on the show many times. I was at a retro swap, and there were some games that were just I tweeted them out. I sent them to the team, and I'm like, look at this. Look at some of these prices. So how are you finding the prices over the last, 5 years? Are they going up? Are they coming back down?
They're definitely going up. So especially if you're talking about the early to mid 90s, those games in particular are skyrocketing still, which was interesting. I think pre-pandemic, they were starting to go down a little bit, and then everybody was at home and needed something to do. So everybody was purchasing them from eBay and driving up the price still. And that momentum has not stopped, which has been interesting. And when it comes to prices as well, it's really dependent on the person who's selling them as well. I mean, a lot of times what you run into is that certain retro shops are a little bit more, we'll say, fair when it comes to their prices versus others. And so it becomes an adventure.
I only paid 20 Canadian for this.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, hey,
that's Canadian. That's like 8 cents to you, Ray. But
wow. Well, hey, Brian, I wanted to share something. I mentioned that Tecmo Bowl.
Yes. Oh my God. Complete.
In the box with the game.
And that's great condition.
And it's got all the manuals and books.
Love that stuff. Oh,
yeah,
man.
So in great condition. It keeps opening it up on shows.
You shut up. Yeah. So that was, and then I think I showed I was looking for Eternal Darkness, and it was the weirdest thing. I could not find it. I could find it, but not in a case, and I finally found it at a show. But those are some good finds. And then I think ESPG mentioned something about Wing Commander was my favorite series and had fantastic art. I love Wing Commander. Commander.
Especially I think does it make an appearance today? I can't remember.
Wing Commander?
Make an appearance later today?
What are you talking about? On where?
There was a Wing Commander on my This Week in Retro. It did show up in one of the things, but I did not post that one. So
what's kind of cool about Wing Commander? Wing Commander actually was a inspiration for the guys at id Software to create kind of their first FPS game. because with Wing Commander, it had the in cockpit view where you could see your arms kind of moving things left and right. So they're like, we need something like that. So they ended up making a game where you are a wizard going through like a dungeon crawl where you could kind of see your own hand casting spells and that kind of thing. And that eventually turned into, what you call it, Wolfenstein 3D, and then into Doom. So that game has a lot more influence than maybe people realize, for sure.
Another question for Ryan. It would be for Jason if he was here as well. And because we have to mention on every show, Ray. So GoldenEye, did you ever play it?
I have some opinions about GoldenEye.
Okay, because we talk about it, I think, on every show, Ray. So I think we have to bring up at least once.
Let's go.
It hasn't come up yet. So, and Ryan seems to have opinions on all these old classic ones. So
I do. So I played GoldenEye as a kid and absolutely loved it. It was a game where you brought, 4 people together to play, no weapons, slappers, and, proximity mines and golden guns. And the multiplayer portion of that game was just what sold it for me. I never actually owned an N64, but I knew a lot of people who did. And that was the game that, typically I played. Now, today, I would say, and this is my personal opinion. So again, if this is not your opinion, please do not take it as something where it means that you can't enjoy a game because I don't necessarily agree.
Get on the Twitter and send the hate, folks.
Yeah.
Send the hate on the
there's
Twitter.
no hate. There's no hate. Love. Everybody has preference. All right.
Just like something else, everyone has an opinion.
Indeed.
Just like something else.
I don't think it's aged very well. When you have played modern first-person shooters or even games that were around at the time, like Quake and that kind of thing, it just the mechanics and how it plays are just a little off. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the fact that it's a single stick controller, so you're not doing twin sticks with it. So you've got to make some decisions as to how to maneuver it. But again, there's still that nostalgia piece to it where I still think fondly of those memories of playing GoldenEye back in the day, but it's not something that I would play by myself, I think, today.
Okay. Well, it is what it is. And we always say you can't look at old games with today's eyes.
True. That's very true.
And
Jeff, were you a big GoldenEye
I love
player?
I love GoldenEye. Yeah. We used to get our 4 computers together, our game things, and we used to play them. And and usually in never my basement. It was always someone else's basement. So we just had to get.
I have my original Nintendo 64 that I think I bought back in 1996 with the original GoldenEye that I bought with it. It was like a package deal, and I bought it. And yes, I played the hell out of it, and I loved it. But you know what? I do have to say, when I go back and play it, it's different. It's a different kind of feeling than when I was playing the 64 and what I'm playing now, because I've played so many. That's like my favorite genre is first-person shooter. So it does have kind of like a weird feel to it, but also depends on what TV and what you're playing it on.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, you can say that about a lot of the games. I play a lot of PlayStation 1 games, and you can't even use the sticks because they are all just the directional keys, and I keep hitting the sticks and they don't work. Some of the PlayStation 1 don't even have a save. I was playing I was playing one of the Die Hard games, and there was no save, and then as soon as I died, I got to start back at the beginning again, which made for a terrible stream because you had to watch me schlep my way all the way back to where I was because there was no save.
When I go back and I play like Resident Evil or Dino Crisis on the PS1, it's a different feel than what I had back then, and it's just, I don't know what it is. My hands are used to different controllers. I guess
muscle memory. The muscle memory.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I find that too when I play, when I stream PlayStation 1 games and things. Yeah. Totally agree. Right. Okay. So Ryan, we're going to switch gears slightly.
Okay.
This every week I do a little segment called This Week in Retro, where I take a look over on what came out on a particular day. And I tweet that out. And if I can figure out how to I can figure out how to share out how to share my screen. I'm new to this. What? Heads up before. Yeah, whatever. Shut up. I'm going to share the entire screen. I'm not going to share the system audio. All right. Oh, that's bad. Okay. Here we go.
There you go. Good job.
Do you see it there, Ray?
Yep. See it.
All right, cool. All right.
Good
So
job.
on July 17th, 1996, for the Sega Saturn decathlete. Can't even say it. What don't I have? Crap, they're out of order. What happened to my? Oh,
It's right there. I see it.
Fourth one from the right. Yep.
Hey.
One to the left.
Oh, there we go.
There you go.
They all got out. They were all out. They got all out of order. Ah, crap. Had them in order too at some point. There we go. So here we go. Oh, let me just skip through some of this. So
Wow, I remember that.
I got stuck in an ad. Hold on.
Hey, look, it's Google.
Gotta love unskippable ads.
Obviously, Nintendo Complete is monetized.
Oh, now I'm hungry. Thanks.
You're welcome, Ray.
Wow.
All right, there we go. Look at that guy go.
Oh my God.
Athlete.
So I ran track in high school, and I remember.
Did you look like that? Did you look like that in high school?
Yeah, if I was doing steroids. Whoa, it's a new world record.
So Sega Saturn, Ryan, thoughts?
I did not grow up with a Sega Saturn, but I've gotten an opportunity to recently purchase one, and I've fallen in love with the console itself. One of the things that's been interesting is that lately they've released a add-on that you can plug into your Sega Saturn that will allow you to play import games as well. Because I think one of the things that was difficult about the Sega Saturn for the US is that there was a limited amount of titles, where if you look in Japan, there are over 1,000 available Sega Saturn titles, and they happen to not come in that huge plastic box that always cracks. So they come in a standard jewel case, which is great. But it was an interesting transition, I got to say, going from the Sega Genesis to the Sega CD to the Sega 32X, and then finally landing on the Saturn. And it's just unfortunate the way Sega of America had to kind of battle that whole process in order to bring the Saturn out. But there's a lot of gems. I got a friend of mine goes by the Twitter name Love Retro BTW, who is a Sega Saturn addict, and he will tell you everything that's good about that system.
I think I know him. Yeah.
Yep, Andy's great.
Yeah. I see. He doesn't he post like every single day, like 5 times a day. Like I see a lot of his. Gotta get him on the show next.
Definitely.
Okay, so July 17th, 2001, Dragon Warrior I for the Game Boy Color. No Pro. I'm not a YouTube Premium member. Shut up.
Oh, big thing about California, we had a lot of import stores. So
there you go.
So, and that was the only way to get your hands on some import games, unless you go online and order it. Ooh, look at that.
Where are we going?
To the sun.
Evidently. Here he goes. Look at those awesome graphics.
Hey, when I was young, this meant the world to me.
For sure.
Oops.
Still does, folks. Still does.
Yeah. July 19th, year 2000, Siege of Avalon, Chapter 1 for the Windows.
Ooh, Shining Force. Now you're talking about, yep.
Oh, I didn't pause this one. Well, you got a whole lot of views from me, whoever you are. Forgot to pause this one. Can we go back here? Is there anything? She doing anything? Just reading? Oh, here we go. There we go.
Wow.
Yeah, Diablo 2 style game here.
Yep.
Oh, she just did this last year. Nice. All right. Excellent. Well done.
Now I want to play some Diablo.
You and me both.
So I had a VIC 20. I had a Commodore 64. There was a Qbert wannabe on the VIC 20 that showed up on my list, but I didn't post that in this one. But we got Trio for the 64. which I don't think I could find a video of. I don't think I could find a video for that, surprisingly. But it came out in the UK. Then we have Alien Earth, again for the Windows on September 21st, 1990. Oh, I guess I didn't pause that one. Okay, such a noob at this. Ooh, look at that.
It's those kind of graphics that blew my mind as a kid. You're like, wow, look at this. It looks like a movie.
Love box art. The game, I bought some really crappy games just because of the box art.
I did as well. Actually wrote an article on this for a game called Tag and Dragon for the NES, which was a unlicensed game by Bunch Games, also known as Wisdom Tree, also known as Color Games. The graphics, the box art for that looks amazing. This big, gorgeous dragon on the front of it. You know, the box itself is fairly detailed, and the game itself has the color palette of Dirty Earth, you know, and it's a maze game, and it's really, really boring. The concept is that you need to bite the tails off other dragons to grow your tail while avoiding them biting your tail off to get to the next level. Really, really boring. I remember coming home like, oh, this is going to be so great. I can't wait for this. And it was the biggest disappointment I've ever got.
Yeah,
that happens. Okay, and then what else we got here? Oh, The Great Escape. I have been looking for this for a long, long time. Where are you? This one? Yes. There we go. The old Steve McQueen movie.
Yep.
Oh, man.
Yes, I've been looking for this. I like I got Die Hard 1 and 2 that I've played a lot on stream, and this one I have been looking for. I just can't see it.
My roommate had this game.
It was what the Hogan's Heroes TV show is based on as well.
Exactly. And for you guys that don't know Hogan Heroes, look it up on Google. Watched it with my dad.
See, I'm at the point, Ryan, with my collection. I'm not collecting for the sake of collecting. I'm collecting the games I want to play.
I'm at that same point.
Right? So, I like SpongeBob games, so I picked up the SpongeBob game because I want to play it, right? If there's something like ET that, okay, I'm buying that because I should have it. But most of the stuff I buy, it's stuff that I want to play either by myself or just on stream, right? So.
Absolutely. I think that you get to a point where having all of these things sitting on your shelf, doing nothing, collecting dust, it just doesn't seem as fun to hunt for. I mean, granted, there are people that want that complete collection, and that's awesome. Don't get me wrong. But for me personally, I just want stuff that I want to play. Now, yes, I can emulate these things, but there's something about having the physical item as well that feels great.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%.
Quake remastered version. I found, where is it here? This guy, how to extract Quake from the registered versions of I couldn't find this, so I found this. I'm like, all right, let's watch this guy. This guy firing it up.
Remember when you had to type in the game that you wanted to play?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Does this bring back memories or what, Ray?
Yeah, it does, man. You know, my first computer was 75 megahertz, which is now to computer like a turtle with Windows 95.
How many people could issue DOS commands today? Are we still unpacking files? That's all this is. There we go. Is he gonna ever? Oh, there we go. Oh, finally he got to play it. There you go.
Oh man. These games.
Quake is one of those classic.
Absolutely. I got dizzy. If you played too much, folks, you would get dizzy, get sick. Oh my God, look at that.
And a different resolution and everything.
Oh my God. Look at this resolution. Oh my God, this resolution is so awesome.
If Jason pops back in and I don't see it, Ray, let me know, please.
Also, are you seeing him in the private room or any? Nothing.
I've lost it. I can't actually even see the chat actually. So, where are we here?
Dang it.
I never got into the Mech Warriors at all.
I
never got into them.
I had big box Mech Warrior back.
Oh, we don't want that. Here we go.
Yeah,
I don't know. This one is just one I never got into. Don't know why.
actually, oh my god, I had this one. Oh my god, I remember this.
This was a game that I wasn't allowed to play at my house because my brother purchased it with his own money, you know, from doing chores and stuff, and I wasn't allowed to because he was my bigger brother, so he would have beat me up if he saw me play it.
Wow.
So maybe I need to go back and finally experience it, you know.
Hey, let me tell you something. This game was ahead of its time. Okay.
Yeah. I remember watching him playing and being enthralled by it. I love the combat piece, and then the fact that you could kind of customize your mech and having to do all the repairs and stuff. It made it really, really fun and interesting.
Nice. All right, awesome sauce. Police Quest.
Great game.
I had SWAT. It's in the closet. I have my SWAT. Big box SWAT.
There we go. Briefings at 1:00. Dooley.
And if I remember it, this was made by Sierra, if I remember.
Sierra did a lot of those.
So Police Quest, Space Quest, and the humor in these games too was fantastic. I remember spending a lot of time laughing as you went through it, especially Space Quest. That was pretty funny.
There's a new series, The Dark Side Detective, which I think is based a lot of these loosely on these because they've got a lot of the humor and a lot of the stuff in it that Ray and I have played.
Yes. Oh my God! Look at the video
of those two dudes. Where'd those two dudes go? There you
go. Good old full motion or full.
yeah.
Full motion video.
So fun. Okay, where are we here? Climber 5 for the Atari 2600 in 2003, which I thought was interesting. There's that one. I don't know how I got these out of order. Anyways. So this is Climber 5 Atari 2600 gameplay from 2003.
I got to say, the homebrew scene in the retro community has created a lot of games just like this that have been fantastic to be a part of. For example, speaking with Howard, he had actually made a game or was working on making a game prior to being let go by Atari called Sabotage, and that actually saw the light of day as a result of Atari Age in the early 2000s as well. So that was a game that you can actually play nowadays, which is fantastic. I think that it really extends the experience as well. Because, I mean, you could play, there's homebrew games where you can play through the entire Super Mario Brothers catalog as Sonic if you want to. And it's stuff like that I love the fact that people are so dedicated that they're putting the time and effort into making stuff that's new.
Look at that, level 4. How awesome is this guy?
He's about to eat it. That thing about to get it. He's about to eat it.
Was he? Oh,
yeah.
Bye-bye.
The speed
was getting to him.
Yeah.
Spin and some of these ones I put in either I've forgotten about or I just don't remember. And Spin Jam is one of those that I just don't remember.
Wow. Okay, I have no idea. Is that a baby in a glass dome? Yeah, I don't remember, and I'm just being real. I don't remember this game.
Yeah, no, me neither. But it came out on whatever day I said it came out. When did I say it came out? Year 2000, July 27th in the year 2000.
Wow.
So I'm not sure what you're supposed to do, but I don't remember this at all. But it made my list.
Look at the baby's happy.
So yeah, so Ryan, with some of these, I don't remember them. Some of them oh my God, I completely forgot about that game. Right. And then that's why they make the list. It's a really hard list to go through and also a lot of the games were released in Japan. So it's a lot of a lot of these games came out in Japan and never saw the light of day in any other country. So I try not to put those in unless they're very special. I try to put in what's US, Canada, Mexico,
I think
UK.
I'm getting it. So you put 4 balls, you got to connect them and then make sure it goes into the right color area.
Hmm.
I'm thinking.
I think you're right. Yep. And then you aim. Yep.
Yeah.
Over on the right, it tells you what ball's coming next, kind of like Tetris. It
Yeah.
looks like
That's
here.
basically it's a Tetris.
It's Tetris with balls.
There you go. Okay.
Here we go. Croc
too. Wow, Croc.
Yes. Fun fact about Croc is that was originally supposed to be a Yoshi game, and they went,
wow.
we can't do Yoshi on this one, so they had to remake the character to look like a crocodile instead of Yoshi.
Holy smoke! And I'm looking at I can see that.
Yep. Had to do all new bad guys and everything too, if I remember right. So that was thanks Nintendo for that one. But Croc is great. I enjoy that game, so I'm glad that they actually released it rather than just scrapping it.
Yeah, that's not Bowser, folks.
Ooh, a lot of bookmarks here. Ooh, let's look at the snow. Ooh, look at the snow.
I say even from this perspective, it kind of looks like Yoshi, doesn't it?
Right. Yeah.
Oh!
Yeah.
Okay, forget the ads. Sorry, folks. Got ads. No YouTube Premium. I think this is Ray. You love RoboCop, do you not?
Come on! I actually got this game.
I know you do. That's why I threw it in the list.
It's got to be better than the NES game, right?
Ooh.
The NES game is rough. It's a really hard game to play.
But there was different. Oh my God, what platform did I play on? There was RoboCop 1, RoboCop 2, RoboCop. They did different RoboCop games, but this one I remember. I like the new one that's coming out. Thanks so much for showing my game on here, guys. Oh, Mr. Urban World's happy. Bam.
He is RoboCop after all. I love that. And it was amazing to me that game became an NES game, considering it was
good
an
shot,
R-rated
Ray.
movie.
That's how I run in real life.
Make sure you don't hit the hostage.
That's how I run in real life. Being an older, fatter. Eco the Dolphin for the Genesis. Where the hell did he go? Here he is. We had another Dolphin game, didn't we, Ray? A few shows ago?
Yeah, we did. But nothing. This is like the king of Dolphin games, Echo, Sega.
Echo or Eco?
I think it's Echo. Yeah.
Echo.
All right.
Because he uses echolocation as part of his. Yeah.
Fine, you guys do it that way. I'm just gonna over here and have my tomato. Fine.
Hey, Miz Tracey, hope you feeling better.
We had an argument on the podcast. Is it Legend of Cage or Legend of Kage? So I totally get it.
I said Cage.
Yeah, that's what I grew up with. Was Cage.
I mean, that's what I grew up with.
Yep.
I don't have any of our British friends on this show, but what's the shoe company that starts with the letter
Adidas.
A? Ryan?
They're talking about Adidas, Adidas. Yeah, Adidas. I'm sorry, folks, but it was my Adidas. Run DMC. Sorry.
That was the reference I needed for today.
There you go.
Adidas.
Oh, there go. See, I had that. It was me and Wilson were having that discussion, but like I said, dude.
Then you were on the rock show as well, and I brought it over to that too.
I just got to show Run DMC my Adidas, which I had some hard shell Adidas with the fat shoestrings with the Kango.
Nice.
God, I'm just putting myself way back.
So that's. Where'd we go? Did we end? There we go. So there we go. There's This Week in Retro, a highlight of games that came out on the various days over the next couple of weeks.
Good job, Jeff.
Just trying to bounce different genres, different Sometimes I get into like 2000. I don't know where to stop. At what year stops being retro? I know we've talked about that at nauseum, right? So, but we try to put in there, and sometimes there's some hidden gems that I find when I go big back through the list. Any old games, Ryan, that you've forgotten about, that you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about, that you just once in a while just wake up and think about, or it shows up on your show?
Simcopter is one that wasn't very popular at the time, but it was a game that me and my brother played on PC back in the day. If you want to talk about ugly looking graphics, that is the prime example, I think, of graphics that don't quite represent what they're supposed to represent. But the gameplay was super fun. I mean, the concept was that you were a helicopter and you could do a bunch of different tasks with it. So either you were picking up people for transport, or you were helping somebody from life lift and taking them to the hospital, that kind of thing. But there were so many great just moments within that game that created the atmosphere around you, because it was, again, one of those games that was 3D, so it was using those polygons, but what you saw was the world was kind of unfolding in front of you. It had the fog that was familiar with all those old games, and it was just something that nostalgically appealed to me, and I would love to be able to get that game again. I don't know if it's probably on GOG.com, so I could probably download it today if I wanted to, but that was one that me and my brother played endlessly for hours on end.
Take care, Miz Tracey.
We started off with Flight Simulator and then went to Simcopter and never looked back. So
there you go. There's your sim. Do you see the screen? I got.
Yep,
is it on the screen?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
See, even the polygon for the smoke that's coming up.
Now, what was that? It was Jungle Storm, Desert Storm with the helicopter.
Yep, there was a few of those. So you're right, Jungle Storm, Desert Storm, and there's another one that I can't think of here right now. But those were prolific back in the day.
Sure was.
Between Genesis and then going into PlayStation as well.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Philly Daily, for playing this. You can clear the traffic jams with a megaphone. Well, there you go.
And those lovely boxy looking cars.
It's the way cars looked back in the day.
Of course.
Don't you remember
But not when this game came out, though.
Oh.
This reminds me of my. I have a Die Hard, like the very I think first one.
Mm-hmm. I have 1 and 2. I have Die Hard 1, 2, and 3, and then Die Hard 2. Yeah.
PC?
No, PlayStation 1.
See, I got PC.
Mm-hmm. 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 Look at that. That's awesome.
Original GTA vibes. Oh my God. Yeah, GTA 1 and 2. Yep. Top down.
Yeah. Excellent. Cool. Okay. Police car, nothing hideous than police cars from the 80s.
Hey, those cars are some classics.
I'm just checking to see if Jason ever made it back, but it doesn't look like it.
No power. Sometimes powers can go out for minutes, and sometimes it can go for hours.
Okay, so Ryan, what else do you have coming up in the next that we should pay attention to? What are you doing? Any more cool streams? Is there more gaming conventions? I have to admit, I don't do as much because of COVID. I've sort of cut back on my gaming stuff, but there is something happening later this year in Hamilton, Ray, which I am trying to negotiate with them. Something cool. So stay tuned for that. If I can actually if I could actually convince them to let me do the show live from the convention floor. But anyways.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So what I've got coming up here is August 26th. We're doing our annual Mario Kart tournament for Stand Up to Cancer. And that should be a pretty fun event. We've been doing it now. This would be the second year. And we just, we were so successful last year and had so much fun doing it. We decided that this needs to be something that we do every year. And the gentleman I mentioned before, Andy, who is Love Retro BTW, he's a director of the stream team for Stand Up to Cancer. So
I know him.
Yep, me and him will be co-hosting the event. And, last year we got an opportunity to get on the recommended page for Twitch.
Oh, nice.
So that's something we'll be doing again this year. And, hoping to kind of break the record. Like I said, $1,500 was something that blew my expectations. We set it up as a goal, and we actually hit it. I got a little emotional.
I will have to reach out to Andy next time you're talking to him. Let him know how awesome we are, and he should come on.
Absolutely. He will get the Retro Game Brews recommendation for sure.
There you go. Excellent. But yeah, I got to reach out to him. We do have a slot coming up in August. That'd be right before that too, so it would actually probably fit nicely as a reminder to fans. So I will reach out to him later on tonight. And if you're talking to him and he gets this weird message from me, then
I'll let him know that you're going to be reaching out.
Yeah, appreciate that. But we have a big birthday stream coming up too. I think that weekend for Miz Tracey, who is our one of our co-hosts, who's popped into the chat, but unfortunately under the weather as well. So some of her community is going to be on that show.
Awesome streamer.
Happy future birthday, Tracy. So
I think she's gone back to bed, but So what else? Ray, what else, other questions? I know you have some other questions. I think. Had some others for Jason too, but unfortunately he lost power.
Well, I just want to say, man, you guys make sure you check out Retro Game Brews. They got on Twitch TV. They got some awesome tournament videos that are going to laugh. A lot of cool retro games. If you're into, like, I saw like Street Fighter, Mario Kart, just some really cool stuff. Check out that and support. And then I just wanted to thank him for the charities for cancer, because I've had some people in my family and friends that have been, touched or, didn't make it through from cancer. So I appreciate your charities and what you guys do, and just blessing us with retro, and keeping retro alive. So thank you so much.
Retro is, like you said earlier, it's just becoming huge. I know there's a lot of retro streams on Twitch. And when I stream my stuff, I always get some random people who pop in just because whatever game I happen to be playing and they remember or they like to see it. So retro's it's always, retro's never going to die, because as we progress, other things. Someday the PlayStation 4 is going to be retro.
It's coming up sooner than you think.
Yeah.
Well, I know some people still think retro is the PlayStation 3. The HDMI is where a lot of people draw the line.
Definitely, yeah.
They draw the line at HDMI. So if it's got HDMI, it's no longer. Maybe that will change eventually, or they've got a year, 15 years, or 18. They have some sort of number of years, right? So it all just depends, like you said, on people's perspective. There's a fellow in the chat, David Wilson. He's the guy we talked earlier. He's 22 years old. Retro to him is PlayStation 4. Right. So, things like that. So, and what do you guys got coming up on the podcast? You guys had some guests that you let slip?
We do. So we reached out to Warren Davis. That's the word. We reached out to him, so we'll potentially be having him. And in fact, we purchased his book, which is about creating Qbert. So we'll be doing a giveaway for that as well, which super excited about. We've got a few other folks that we haven't quite penned in to show up on the show, but one of the things we like to do is we like to sprinkle in guests, typically about once a month, that have some relevance to the history of gaming. Because one of the things that I do on the podcast every week is a series called Gaming History 101, where I take either a game or a situation or a company and talk about that entire story behind that. Because one of the beauty of the history piece of this is that a lot of the things that come out of that is it's a surprising thought process behind how a game was made, how a company came to be. And so had a lot of fun doing that, probably done about 25 of those so far. And every time we get to have somebody who really was there and experienced it is always a huge treat for us. So in the past, we've had Rebecca Heineman, who was the first tournament winner for video game tournaments. She won a Space Invaders tournament in 81. We've had Howard Scott Warshaw. We've had Andrew Borman, who is the curator for the Museum of Play as well. And
you got to get Dr. Disrespect. He's the two-time winner of whatever he babbles. He's the two-time winner of from back in the day.
Indeed, and I would love to have him on the show. I just don't know if you would be willing to spend some time with us. But
I would love to have like Meet Jesus or Reggie or something, but I don't think we're there. I don't think quite we're there yet. I think once we get them, then I think we retire the show. That's it. We got Metal Jesus.
Done.
We're done. I think. But I don't think I've reached out to them, but I've of course heard nothing. So, I think that's the penultimate guest if we can get someone like that, or even Retro Rick.
For sure.
I think there's some. Maybe if we combine our shows, we tag team.
I think there's a lot of hidden gems out there. There's a lot of people who do retro content that are passionate about it and want to talk about it. And and like I said,
I keep digging them up and I keep asking and I completely understand, Ryan, how you're scheduling, because just you and I tried to schedule your appearance on here, right? And trying to get other people. Even with Jason, he's like, yeah, when next week? I go, well, no, we're booking into July. So it was
right.
I come back to some old email. I emailed him in May, and that's when we started talking, and I'm booking them into July. So, I certainly understand, trying to schedule people and guys like you and Jason, I don't have a great relationship. I don't have a big relationship with. And so you guys were great just to come on, and you didn't know me.
We appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I had an absolute blast doing this. It's always fun to talk about past experiences in retro and get a chance to talk about your passions and hearing it from you guys too. I mean, the stuff that you're bringing up. I mean, being able to talk about the games that you played and the games that you found it's just fun. I love doing that stuff. It's how I spend my entertainment time anyway. So happy to be a part of this.
Yeah, like William, who couldn't, he's lurking in the background. He's a big Bionic Commando guy.
Good game.
I love the Duke Nukem and the Abe. There was a new Abe that they gave me a key for, so I was able to play an updated version of it recently. So those are the games I like. I love the Duke Nukem, as Ray knows, and I'm trying to collect all of those and things like that. So it's great. Any last words from the chat? I don't have access to the chat here, so I don't know.
I do.
Any other last questions before we call it a day?
Somebody said HDMI and digital distribution, in my opinion, but that may be a gray area considering the 90s. Miss SPG would say PS2 and older. She would consider retro.
Sure. PlayStation 3, that's a gray area for a lot of people, right?
Don't forget to hit the thumbs up. Thank you, Sierra. And thank you, hosts and guests, for a wonderful show. And Crow said, great show.
Ryan, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? I'm just going to jump in and say, for Jason, he doesn't have the Twitter. So really his YouTube channel is the only way, which there is a link in the description, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I put it in the chat, and I know SPD is going to put it in later in the description. But thank you, Jason.
He may show up on the Twitter. Now that he's got the light thing, he's talked about some other stuff. He's talked about going
he
on
says
Twitter.
It's all there. It's all there. Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Cool. So Ryan, sorry to interrupt. Well, what's the best way of getting a hold of you, and what are the channels they need to subscribe to?
Sure. So at Retro Game Brews, you can contact me directly through there. Also, the podcast Twitter account is at Gamers Week PC. You can find the podcast anywhere that you listen to podcasts. So search Gamers Week, and we'd be happy to have you listen. And we do a weekly poll, so you can sound off about your opinions on that. So definitely check that out as well.
Excellent. Great. Again, thank you so much for being on here, and to Jason as well. I had a bunch more questions for Jason. Unfortunately, we'll have to have him back, Ray. We'll have to get him back.
Oh, definitely.
So we can finish the conversation.
Brilliant, and artistic, and very smart, and love his craftsmanship and his knowledge and of tech and everything. So definitely, yeah.
The fact that he's able to do it and get puts all those things together. Like I've seen, Metal Jesus use the gun, and not with some success, but the fact that he was able to get all that to work, that's quite amazing. We were talking behind the scenes, Ryan, just before you arrived, and he wants to partner with cabinet people because they're just it's different skill sets, right?
For sure.
So if he can partner with a good woodworker to make some good cabinets and get the
I think he has a 16 terabyte drive.
Oh, wow.
Loaded with some goodies on there. So guys, make sure you check out the video in the chat link and click on it and watch that video. Amazing.
He's got a couple of new ones coming out that he also said. I can't remember if that was on the show or behind the scenes, Ray. But he's got some other stuff. So yeah, make sure you subscribe to him and to Ryan and to Ryan's podcast. I listen to. I don't listen to it. I don't catch it. I catch it on. I listen to it on.
I just followed on both, so I'll definitely be checking it out.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. I had an absolute blast.
Ryan, just hang on a second. SPG is going to run the closing. I think we're done. Thanks, everyone.
We'll got in here late. What's up, Lo-Fi?
We will see you guys in 2 weeks for our next.